Yeah. All right. So
welcome back.
Officially. Back. And thanks for your patience as we attempted to try and troubleshoot and figure out what was going on with the Facebook Live. But I can imagine that Zoom is probably a little overloaded with all of the people going virtual these days. So here we are.
They're forgiven.
Yeah,
they're forgiven.
Cheers to that. All right. So first slide, you can see this is what the webinar that we did last week. We ended with our trip to Uganda, through Uganda, with crossing the border into Rwanda. And as we realized very quickly, we did a lot in the 2.5-ish weeks that we were on the ground. So here we are for part 2. And I'm just going to preface that with we travel to Africa every year. So Sunit and Mishan are going to share their journey through South Africa and Mozambique with us next week.
Yep, next Tuesday.
And then we're bringing in Abigail, who traveled through Tanzania with me for an entire month. So we'll do that in 2 weeks. Hopefully you guys can tune in and just kind of take a virtual safari with us.
Yeah.
So we're going to, just like we did last time, here's a map of Rwanda and you can kind of see. And interestingly enough, perfect map is that all the green areas is where the national parks are that we went to. So you can see it's kind of spread around the country, and you're going to fly in and out of Kigali. That's kind of your main hub. However, we actually crossed the border from Uganda, as you can see on that star, into volcanoes.
Yep. And wouldn't you say you noticed a distinct difference when you crossed the border into Rwanda? We were talking about it at the last webinar. Everything in Rwanda is a little bit more polished. The roads are paved. It's a very clean country. I think one of the cleanest countries in Africa. So that is a really distinct difference that I noticed. And I think you noticed that as well when we traveled, when we crossed the border.
Absolutely. Julie, I just saw your message. She's saying that she can't see anything at all. Is anybody else having trouble? If you could just chime in real quick and let me know if you cannot see what we're presenting. No problems. I can see the material.
Oh,
all right, cool.
Maybe she should just switch it. Sometimes you have to like double click on the screen to like flip them.
Yeah. Try tapping on like our image or something like that, and that'll maybe swap everything around.
It's being funky today.
It's had too much gin and tonic apparently. All right, cool. So that's Rwanda. And our first, actually, we didn't pull it in here, but when we entered in, we went to lunch first. Yes. And our guide took us, and now mind you, we had been with the same guide throughout all of Uganda. And I touched on this the last time we talked, like you get so attached to your guide, right? And we like got into a different type of vehicle, and it was just kind of an adjustment. We're in a new world all of a sudden, and he took us to this really cool spot that was a hotel that you can stay at in volcanoes. There's multiple different options. And
they had a restaurant.
Yeah, and it was like on the 2nd floor, and it had these beautiful views, and they were playing 80s music, and we were so excited to have the radio playing. Because
I think Bruce Springsteen was playing or something. We were like, wait, what?
Yeah, are we in Africa? And you had, what did you get?
I had like an Asian pad thai.
Yeah, which was so far different than anything else they feed you on safari, because usually it's like gourmet 3-course meals, and this was like a little bit of comfort food perhaps, so it was nice. And then we made our first stop. Well, actually, we stopped at a couple other places just to check out properties,
but nothing worth mentioning.
I mean, great properties, but this is where we ended up staying our first night. And it is beautiful. It's Governor's Camp, Sabinho. And it is, you can see on the video here, magical little garden cottages where you had views of the volcanoes from your room.
Very charming. I think more traditional. If you're looking for that traditional African sort of feel, it's a little colonial.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
So,
and we had a butler here too, right? Like they came and like brought us drinks, and they had beautiful outdoor dining, and
the food was, I remember the food being really, really delicious.
It was amazing. Yeah. Oh, and they had like a little library where they were playing Gorillas in the Mist.
Oh yes, they do. They play movies every night.
Yeah. So they had like a library with like movie time, that sort of thing. And it's,
but I think the most important thing about Sabinho, it is community owned. So there is a trust that is owned by the community, and I think it was established back in 2012. Since then, there's been like $3.3 million in revenue, and it has want to go ahead?
No, I was just gonna say that goes straight back into the community though. The revenue is not for
I'm
them
trying to pull in some projects that they worked on. So they built homes for survivors of the genocide. They paid for health insurance for 7,000 people. They built a health center and donated 200 cows to the poorest members of community. So they've done a lot of really great work in the local community, and it's great to see that impact.
Yeah, and they're happy to share that with you because they want you to see just how impactful your contribution and you being there. Like, this may be your trip of a lifetime or your dream to go see the gorillas, but it's also it's creating so much for the local community. And we touched on this at the Uganda webinar that, you know, these people are farmers, or they were former poachers or something like that. And this, they really they're getting a different view. They're really getting a chance to see just how impactful it is to be for them, for the tourism to be coming to them. So there were a lot of stairs here too.
Yes.
However, they've just installed a like a path with a little cart so you can get picked up, which is lovely. And so all the cottages are kind of really like private and tucked around in different places. Beautiful. And yeah,
great for families, great for groups traveling together, couples. Yeah. They have different room configurations. So,
and the bathtubs in Africa are always amazing. So no matter what, I take more baths in Africa than I do when I'm back in the States, because how can you not when you've got a bathtub like that? Yeah. And a view. All right, so we'll take you on to the highlight. Well, what people would claim to be the highlight of Rwanda is the gorillas. Becca was adamant. She wanted to see babies. And I was adamant that I was done.
Easiest trip.
Yeah, I was so not, like, I was so tired. So a similar situation. Basically, you go to park headquarters. Your guide brings you there. Very different layout at this park headquarters. It didn't feel like a big area that everybody came into. They had these beautiful little like corners that you would go, and sit with your guide, and they would tell you about the family and opportunity to hire porters, which best $20 you'll ever spend, because you are contributing to the local community, but also getting your backpack carried or getting lifted or pushed. So they took us through kind of like these farmlands first to the drop-off point. And it was hot. The sun was shining. And we started trekking. And about like 30 minutes. You see there's no cloud cover at all in this video. You are just walking through the farm. Okay, anyways. Back
off to a great start.
So I tried to get up. We were about like, I don't know, just
it was a late night. I think you went to bed at like midnight one in
always
the morning.
A late night.
Woke up we had to wake up earlier this time because we were in Rwanda, so there was a time change. We had to wake up an hour earlier.
We lost an hour.
And so I think we had to leave at like 5:30, 6 a.m. So you were a little tired.
I don't do mornings. So we're trekking, and Becca, she's like good to go, and she's hanging out with the group, and I am hanging in the back with my porter who's just trying to like hang out with me. And I
encouraging.
And I was like, that's it, I'm quit. I'm done. I'm not going. I'm not interested. I saw the gorillas already. I'm not doing this. And I had a total mental breakdown, and it was fine. And everybody stopped. And I was talking to Becca before this. I'm like, did anybody in the group get irritated? And she's like,
no, not at all.
Not at all. Everybody was so supportive. And
I think when you decided that you didn't want to do it anymore, everyone was like, no, Liz, we're not going without you.
We're not leaving you behind. Yeah.
But I think it was our ranger / guide who really,
she was amazing.
Resonated with you, like whatever she said to you.
Yeah, she pulls me over to the side, and I'm like trying to catch my breath. And she's like, you came here to see the gorillas. It is my job to make sure you see the gorillas. I'm not letting you go home until you see the gorillas. We will do this all day. We will take 5 steps, and we will stop, and we will take 5 more steps, but you are going to see the gorillas.
And the rest of the group was on board.
Everybody was just hanging out. Like, when is this?
We're like, we don't mind.
Get on it.
Slow.
So needless to say, I picked up my my energy or lack thereof, and off we went. And what I think was really cool about the just the landscape is it was so very different. Whereas in Uganda, it's the impenetrable forest for a reason. Volcanoes is a much smaller area, and you can see that it's been encroached on by farmlands. So we'll talk about that a bit more in the next property that we went to. But it felt like you could see more. Like there were these little like viewpoints. Remember, we would stop, and then we had to like kind of.
Well, this is this video right here is one of the ridges that we.
Yeah, ridge, exactly. So you kind of like get up on this ridge, and then we were like climbing on roots and then it was very different in terms of the landscape, at least it felt like, but it wasn't nearly as difficult, other than that first section, at least for me, than Uganda, wouldn't you say?
The first section?
Yeah, no. The once we were in the forest, or the trek as a whole, really.
It was different because we never, in Uganda, we were never climbing. Like,
oh, that's right.
This, I felt like,
you're like pulling yourself up on top of things.
You're pulling on like roots, and this is where I use the gloves the most.
Oh yeah.
Because we were pulling up on roots, and it was a little bit, there was just a few steps. It wasn't as intense as Uganda. It was just getting through some of the thick brush.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a good point.
But once we got through all of the brush, the guide says, okay,
we see the trackers
up on the gorillas, and you need to, drop your bags. So we did that, and we walk into this opening, and this entire family of gorillas, they're all just hanging out in this pasture. They descended
on us too.
And it was like, we were in like the forest, and then it was just this open sort of plain, and all the gorillas were just hanging out in this open plain. It's like, we got so
surreal.
Lucky because we were able to get these incredible shots.
And there was nothing blocking it, right? Like, whereas in Uganda, most of the images that we had, it would be through the brush, or like there's a tree in the way, or you're really just trying to like navigate the angle. But here they were just hanging out. Like, they didn't care. They were walking. There were several times when they would be walking to move, and the guide would be like, step back, because they were hungry. They were on a mission to go get their food. So, but the whole baby thing, as you can see, this was a 4-month-old baby. And
still nursing.
Yeah. And at one point the mom was like digging something off the ground, and the baby's just like hanging out. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And we learned about how twins are really uncommon. Remember that?
Oh, right. Oh,
yeah.
This is kind of,
it's a little sad.
I'll let you tell the story. I'm going to keep troubleshooting this Facebook Live.
So just like humans, gorillas can have twins, but notice how the mom's holding one baby, and she uses the other hand to kind of walk around. So if she's got 2 babies, then she can't walk around and she can't pull food. So it's really hard for her to manage 2. And sometimes the other like females in the group will help. But babies are a big deal, and they have like baby naming ceremonies. And this family, we learned the silverback was actually a male that was kicked out of a previous group. And he ended up being such like the king of the castle that he ended up taking over another group, and he had like a whole harem of women, like 8 or 9 females. So that was interesting, because you learn the story, where they came from, how many kids they've had, like, the history behind them, because these guys are actually out in the forest with them nonstop. We're there for an hour, but they're there 8, 9, 10 hours a day, and really paying close attention to them. So pretty amazing. Pretty amazing.
Big difference here in the gorilla treks. So we talk about permits.
Oh yeah. So permits in Uganda as of November are $700 a person. Here they are $1,500 a person. And also I think as a result, the more luxury options have moved into Rwanda, because the price point is higher, and so therefore. But here, just like in Uganda, if you're not physically able, you can hire the porters for $300 to $500. They will carry you up to the mountain. As my example of a story, they will make sure that you see these gorillas. We heard stories of people who didn't even make it through the pastures, and the gorillas came down to like the fence of the border, and they saw the gorillas there. So I think that in terms of difficulty, Rwanda is not as difficult.
It's a higher elevation, but it's less of an incline.
Yeah. Any questions about the gorilla trekking at all? I mean, we can answer more when we get towards the end of it. But so after the gorilla trek, we go back to our guide knew that we were interested in seeing the Diane Fossey Gorilla Fund. And I have to say, It's definitely because I wanted to take a picture like Ellen took at Diane Fossey's desk. And I was like, I need this picture. But so we were like, all right, let's go. And there was no cost to get in. It was just by donation, and you could give them your information or what have you. And it was fascinating because we learned about the different types of the different species of primate and where they live, and we learned about how they used to trap them and the history behind how Diane Fossey would track their nose prints.
Oh yeah.
Remember, there were like pictures of nose
As
prints
their fingerprints.
as their fingerprints, so she could tell the difference between the gorillas. And we learned just about her and her history and that sort of thing. And they're actually now in process, because of Ellen, on building a new campus. Because of the passion.
They broke ground earlier this year, and they're scheduled to open next year.
Right. So it was really cool, and we decided to do it because we were only there for one more night. When are we going to have the chance to see this? And I'm so glad that we did. It was air conditioned. We wandered around. There weren't a whole lot of people in there.
Nope.
And
but it's really informative and interactive.
Yeah. You could like see like their foot sizes and their handprints, and like you really understood and learned about the gorillas, but the different types of gorillas, the lowland versus the ones in the mountain gorillas. Like there's gorillas you can go check in other places too. So you learned all that information, which is pretty cool. And then we headed to our next stop, still within volcanoes, because we needed another property to see. And we walked into the room, and I said, I'm never leaving. This is my new home. Welcome.
So this is Basati.
This is Basati. You can see in the picture in the bottom, those little huts are basically the individual rooms, essentially. And they are so beautiful. I remember we walked in, and I was like, which room are we in? They're like, 1. And I was like, is that the one with the least stairs? And they're like, yes. And I was like, oh, thank God. Because you see they're kind of tucked away and kind of up on a mountain or what have you. But who would want to leave a room like that? I mean, it was
so cozy,
so
and they all have views of the mountains. So you can sit out on your balcony with a drink. What's great is it's all open, so you can lay in your bed and see the views. And
from your bathtub,
and from the bath. I mean, the bathroom was like gorgeous. Everything about Basati was just designed so beautifully.
What?
So that we can hear you. Oh, Suna jumping on. I think he's trying to help us figure out the Facebook Live feature, which for some reason isn't working, but that's okay because we're hanging out with you guys here. So Basati, oh my gosh, we walked in and like they served us lunch, and it was this chapati avocado cream cheese thing, and the menu was amazing, and I couldn't decide what I wanted. And it was clear that the menu changed every day because it was based on the you're in a farmland essentially, so it was based on on what they had harvested or what they had available to them, because they buy from the local communities to supply for the food, and therein is that tourism and community link. And they really, what I think makes me so happy about Basati, and it's not the bathtub, even though it was wonderful, is there.
It's at the bar.
It's the bar. No, the bar was really cool. I remember how.
But that's this picture.
Okay, so the top right photo, you can see the green bottles. Everything was like upcycled. So that's glass bottles that they had recycled, and they were like cookies out. You could help yourself. They had an espresso machine. Yeah, it basically was.
Okay, but it wasn't the bar.
It wasn't the bar. It was the community. What is so interesting about, I think, what they're doing here, and really what all the properties around volcanoes are doing, is that as you saw with the farming that we walked through during our trek, the farmers, that's their job. That's their main source of income. And so as a result, they need space to farm. And so the farming started to encroach on the volcano, on the national park, thus shortening and making a smaller area for the gorillas to actually live in, which is part of the reason why they were becoming endangered. And then the gorillas would come in and eat from the farm, so they would kill them or what have you. So Basati moved in, and they are working on reforesting the area. And you can do things like plant a tree. The owner of our company, for his 50th birthday, Basati planted 50 trees, and on his behalf. We've done it for clients, that sort of thing. So you're contributing at the same time to like this incredible conservation project that is really going to create an impact on these gorillas being around for future generations, which I think is pretty phenomenal. So we are We get to our room and they offer a complimentary massage, mind you. She shows up in your room and she gives you a head massage, and it was
Head and
heaven.
neck, yeah.
Yeah. It was so good. It was so good. Everybody should get a massage every day they're on a gorilla trek itinerary, or in general. But
and then
we had room service to our room because we were tired.
The massage, I think, just
sucked
put us
little
down, and we were going to go back to the dining room. Yeah. But once we got cozy, I mean, because the rooms are so cozy, we got, all cuddled up in bed, and we're like, oh yeah, no, we're doing room service. And the room service was amazing. They actually held dessert, remember? Because it was ice cream. Yeah. So they wanted to make sure, all of the food that we were eating was fresh and delicious. So they dropped off the entrees and the appetizers and then brought out the dessert later. Which was nice.
It was amazing. You had like a mini bar in the room too, so like you didn't even need to go to the bar. No. It was phenomenal. So we wake up the next morning and this is it. We're leaving volcanoes and we're like, we wanted to see just how much there was. We wanted to see a little bit more in the involvement. So Basati partners with this local community that basically that is on the fringe of where Basati is located. And this is a legitimate community that lives there that probably hasn't traveled within 10, 15 miles of their radius. And they are all, they're working to build and create. And you can see that the picture of the home, they very, very easily welcomed us into their homes. We were waving at the little kids. They were answering any questions we might have. A lot of the people, though, at this time of day were already out in the field. So I remember our guide was kind of like knocking down the doors to find someone for us to talk to. I don't know if you can tell in that video, but she's walking back to us and she's like, no one's home.
But then in the picture to the right, we did get to go inside, which is cool to see the inner workings of the house. And this was their laundry room. Yeah. But they have separate, like it wasn't a kitchen, but they did have separate rooms
where
for
they cooked. Yeah. But you know what I think is so beautiful about this is we were never met with an angry face or a frustrated face or oh, look at these tourists or anything like that. Like there were nothing but smiles, and you could just there was a language barrier obviously, but you could just feel their joy. And I think one of the biggest things I took away from this trip is just how much joy the Africans have with it so little. And maybe it's because they don't have access to watching the White House update every day like we are currently doing, or Facebook to scroll through and see it. There's so much joy emitting from them when and you can just see it. You can see their eyes light up. I think it's beautiful, and we're helping. We're a part of that by getting to be there. So it was pretty cool. All right. We head out of Basati, and basically all roads lead to Kigali, right? So like you got to go through Kigali to get wherever it is that you're going, and we are off to Akagera National Park, which in and of itself is a pretty cool project that they've been doing in terms of rehabituating animals into Akagera. Again, farmland encroached on it, and so animals kind of weren't there anymore, but they've been working really hard to
it was a big five destination before the genocide, and then the genocide happened and that kind of took a toll on the country. So Akagera before it was a big five, and now I think just recently it's considered a big five destination again, right? Because they're translocating animals from all over Africa, and most recently some lions.
So there are at this time there was one property that we could visit, and
which is Ruzizi.
And it's actually owned by the national parks. So it's not the same as Basati, right? In terms of just the service and that sort of thing. It's rustic, but it got us into Akagera, and we needed to see it, and we had a great adventure here.
Yeah. But what I love about Ruzizi is the fact that all the profits go towards conservation.
Agreed. Yeah.
And it is 100% solar powered, so you're doing your part.
Yeah, absolutely. And it had a beautiful view of the lake. We sat outside with our laptops and our glass of wine, and there was a monkey who was jumping all over the place. We were so entertained by the monkey, because by the time we got here, as you saw on the last slide, the journey was a little bit long, and we had decided it wasn't planned to do the community visit. We were just going to get up and go so we could get to Akagera sooner. But we wanted to do the community. So as we're making the drive, like nap and then wake up and look around, that kind of thing. We stopped at a super cool coffee shop.
Yes.
That had like
That had
local
art.
artists. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But by the time we got into Akagera, it's a national park, which means that you don't have as much flexibility in terms of being out at nighttime or going off-roading, that kind of thing. And so we got in so late that there really wasn't any time for us to do a proper game drive, but there was still plenty of time for us to be hanging out at the lodge.
Yeah.
So this is a couple images from it. The walkways are really cool. Everything was, it felt very secluded. Like you walk through this like underbrush to get to like the different rooms.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there are animals in Africa and there are bugs in Africa.
Why do you say that, Liz?
I don't know. Why do I say that? Becca was convinced the spider was out to kill her. I'm just going to put that out there right now.
We saw a spider in our room.
It was like this big.
It was massive. Wait, did you say this big?
It was like that big.
Oh yeah, that's big. It was big.
It was big.
And I was trying to shoo him away.
So the spider would not go away.
He went underneath a crack. So he was gonna stay the night with us, and he did.
And Becca slept with one eye open as a result.
I woke up every single hour and checked the bed. Yeah.
He didn't care about us though.
No.
I mean, and that's the reason why I bring this up is because
he was harmless.
He was harmless. He probably was actually helping us by eating mosquitoes or something.
Right. You're right.
But spiders are scary. Yeah. So there are bugs. There are bugs everywhere, and you get used to it, and you find little stories to tell about the spider who didn't let Becca sleep.
Who I did not try to kill at all.
I might have. Spiders are scary, Angela. Thank you. I feel like that's the one thing that I'm not cool with. Like when I was in Tanzania, granted we were in the car, but like there was a spitting cobra, and I didn't care. Like I was like, whoa, look at that spider.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyways, so Leah
food here was amazing.
Oh, the food was really good.
Because we were like, oh, this is more a rustic, camp, and we were kind of expecting more rustic food, but it was like gourmet food.
And not only
delicious.
We were the only ones there, so we're sitting out on that little circular patio where they served this dinner, right? And we had our server and then somebody else, and then it felt like there were like 7 people serving us, and we were just,
we felt like
we were like royalty or something. It was pretty good. The food was really good. Somebody just asked a question and I missed it. Oh, where'd it go? I don't know where it went. Can you ask that question again? I think it was something about mosquitoes. I saw briefly that it was about mosquitoes, and basically the mosquitoes aren't really bad because you're at a high elevation and it's cool. So it wasn't terrible at all, I don't think. Yeah. Oh, good. Got the question. Yeah. So no, I don't think.
No, the
at all.
Mosquitoes were not bad.
Not at all. Yeah. The only time I really dealt with mosquitoes is when I didn't put bug spray on, like on our first night at Baker's in
in Uganda. And that was near the water,
right,
which is expected.
Yeah.
But
we went in March. So we were there for the last 2 weeks of March.
Yep.
Yeah.
So alternatively, if Ruzizi is too rustic for you, there is another camp in the north called Magashi,
which wasn't open when we went, but is now.
It's open now, and it is still a tented camp, but it has more luxury finishes, and it's owned by Wilderness Safaris, who owns Basati, so you can expect the same level of service. And
they're doing some really cool stuff with big cats. So they're really involved with big cats, and they're also on the lake. As you can see, there's a huge, beautiful lake there. So you can get like the boating activities and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. We honestly weren't here enough time to really get a chance to see all of the wildlife. But we'll flip to the next slide. You can see we saw a pretty good amount. Flip it. And there we go. So we wake up the next morning and we've packed our bags and we say goodbye to our people, and on the road we hit, and we saw quite a bit of wildlife. We were only out for an hour. It was like a modified game drive because we had to catch our helicopter. So we went out for a little bit, and you can see we had some really, Leah, that is a really hard question. She just asked, of the camps we visited, which is our favorite?
In Rwanda.
In Rwanda? Let's finish the presentation. We'll come back to that question because I think we might disagree on this. Yeah, we're actually, so Robin just asked about Kigali, and we actually did it backwards because we crossed through Uganda. So we actually ended our trip in Kigali, and we'll talk about that after this next stop after that. So, okay.
So Akagera has giraffe, zebra, elephants. In the south, there is less predators. All of the predators sort of congregate in the north where Magashi is, so you can expect to see maybe leopard and lion in the north, or you have a higher chance.
Yep.
But I thought it was a great game drive, you know,
it was
for what it was.
Yeah, it absolutely was. It was interesting though, because we were in a we weren't like in a proper game vehicle.
We were like in a Toyota Highlander.
Yeah. So we're like rolling down the window and rolling the window back up again, but we got some great shots.
Okay, so to the chopper.
Get to the chopper. All right, wait. Oh, that's coming next. All right.
just to show you the lay of the land, we flew from Akagera to Kigali, so they tend to stop in Kigali for weather. Because where we're going, the weather is a little unpredictable, and they don't want to keep you in the helicopter for an hour because within that hour, the weather might change, the forecast might change. So they always stop in Kigali to make sure it's safe, which was like my most, like I was asking the helicopter pilot multiple times. I'm like, how many years have you been doing this? How many times have you had an emergency landing? Like grilling him, and he was a good sport about it. But
neither of us had ever been in a helicopter before.
Oh, okay, that's
right.
I thought maybe you had.
No,
okay, it was just. Yeah,
and flying, you know, some people are really cool with it and some people are not really cool with it. And so understandably, we were a little bit concerned, although pretty cool to see like this helicopter just fly in and land on this private helipad, and you're like climbing in, and we had to make sure that we had, the weight restrictions are really tight on helicopters, obviously. So we had to actually send the majority of our luggage back with our guide who we left there, who had it waiting for us.
Logistical.
Had it waiting for us in Kigali, and we had to take like an overnight bag with us to Nyungwe because we could only take so much weight with us. But it was pretty cool. So we stopped in Kigali on the helicopter, and the pilot's like, yeah, there's some bad weather in Kigali, and Beck and I are like, we're good with that. We'll stay put as long as you need us here. But it was really neat because Akagera, which is the company that flew us, actually has the police helicopters too. So we were in this huge warehouse with like all these massive helicopters for like we were in a 2-passenger. There was a 12-passenger one. They put us in their conference room with coffee, and we were like, Wi-Fi. Like, we'll hang out here.
Because Brazil doesn't have
no Wi-Fi. That's right.
So that was the first time we were back on the grid.
So disconnected. But it was incredible. And what was neat about the stop in Kigali too, I think, was I got rode in the front for the first section, and then you got to ride in the front for the second. So we both had that like
that
flying in a bubble view. And that's really what it felt like. You were floating in a bubble.
So this was a highlight. The helicopter, it was a little pricey, but so worth it.
So worth it. This in and of itself was an adventure.
You are flying above forests and jungles, and we got to fly over Kigali, which was really cool. And this video is towards the end of our flight when we are flying over like these mosaic of tea plantations.
Great word.
And I included this picture because it looked like Florida. So that was one of the rivers that we had flown over.
It was stunning.
It was really cool. And then we land
in the middle of the mountains. We're like flying through clouds. Now, this is the only time that I got nervous being on the helicopter, because we knew that there was bad weather, which is why we were delayed. And then I'm looking around, and you can see the angry gray clouds. They were very angry. And I had just had this is a terrible thing to say, but you see those video games where like the helicopter like flies in the side of a mountain. Like I just had that visual in my head. It's terrible. I'm sorry. But we made it safely. Everything was fine.
Yeah. No, I did. I said a couple times, I was like, you're getting a little close to that mountain over there. He's like, I think I know what I'm doing. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah. True. So we land in the middle of these lush tea plantations.
So Nyungwe is located on sort of a massive tea plantation, which we'll get into a little bit more the details of that, because they allow locals to actually pick the tea on those plantations.
Yeah.
But we landed in the middle of this beautiful tea
And
plantation.
It's a little pixelated, but if you can kind of see a little bit, the little yellow specks are actually locals picking tea for hours on end. So it was pretty cool. It's like kind of a grand entrance. All right, you want to flip on to the next one? And then on to Nyungwe House, which is a one and only property. So if you're familiar with one and only, you know they do luxury well. And this was no exception. It was, you're surrounded by these tea plantations, and then we drove into it, and it didn't feel like we were driving into a luxury lodge at all at first. It just felt like we were kind of taking this little local road or what have you. And then
it's definitely a little inconspicuous. It's
super like built into the landscape.
Right.
Like, the home that you see in that center image on the bottom, like that doesn't look like much, but we were in a 2-bedroom villa that had a fireplace and an outdoor seating area and
a
two bathtubs
room.
and a dining room. And I mean, it just was like luxury.
Ultra luxury.
Yeah.
Absolutely loved it, because, you know, we were coming from Rosazi, which was a little bit more rustic, but I liked it because we got our fix of like traditional Africa,
Be in the
Africa
bush
safari. But then we got to Nyungwe and settled into this really luxurious, high-end room. But I will say, the room could have been in Rwanda, it could have been in New York, it could have been in Tokyo.
Yeah, you're right.
So
it
it was
design of it, although not in the common areas. The common areas felt like it really had like
they tried to
local
bring
influence.
in some of those textiles, the Rwandan textiles,
but very contemporary.
Yeah.
And the food was, what did they call it when they served us?
With the first night?
No, it was like our server called it something. It wasn't like your menu for the night. It was the creation or the chef's,
the journey.
Yeah, I was like, they used some fancy word for whatever it was, because every day the food changes based on the chef who picks from his local garden.
Yeah,
who
Chef
is like
Treasure.
this
He is
very
really well known.
Yeah.
And he has his own vegetable garden. So if you're staying there, you can do a tour of the vegetable garden. You can actually pick the vegetables for your salad that night, and he'll incorporate it. Yeah. So really big on food here.
I have to say, this is my favorite food of the Rwanda portion of the trip.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it was next level. It was Michelin star level.
Yeah.
It was phenomenal. And the presentation every single time.
And the flavor pairing too, like the way that they would, like I wouldn't have thought some of these things would go together, but when you put it in your mouth, you're like, oh wow, that complements itself very nicely.
Yeah.
So here we are at Nyungwe, and this is what we know as it's now, believe it or not, our second to last night in.
Yeah, we spent 2 nights in Nyungwe.
Oh yeah, we did.
Which was nice.
We finally
got to settle in somewhere and without having to pack the night before.
Yeah.
I mean, it was amazing. It was a perfect way to end the trip, which was to relax. It wasn't like, guerrilla trekking can be a lot of work, and this was relaxing.
Yeah, it was. It felt like a retreat
until the next day.
It felt like a retreat.
And there's a ton of activities here. We just scratched the surface. We, they have gin tastings.
Yeah. You could actually go to the local tea house where they do all of the sort the different leaves, and you learn about how the tea is made, that sort of thing. So we actually did it's on a slide, yeah? Yeah.
We're going to go to the next slide, which is a little video, and we can talk about the video because there's no sound, but the guide asked us, do you guys want to go out in the field and meet some of the locals? So he was explaining to us, and I'll start the video here so that you guys can see it. He was explaining to us that one and only, when they built the lodge, they bought the land, but instead of taking the land for themselves, they actually have invited the locals to pick the tea leaves on that land and make money off of the leaves that they pick.
Yeah, whatever they bring in, whatever weight that is, then they get paid for it. And there's certain types of leaves that you need to pick, the shape of the leaf and how young it is or how old it is or what have you. It was fascinating. I mean, truly. So first he takes us and he puts these silly little baskets on our back and we're like, oh, cool. And then he walked us through the tea plantation that was the tea farm fields that were closest to the park to just show us the difference between the leaves and like letting us pick. Becca was a pro, like she was a pro. She was all about it. She said she actually was going to move to Rwanda to become a tea picker, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a highlight.
It was so much fun. But so then we walk in to here and you see the truck that's there. So they're taking the tea leaves and they're weighing the tea leaves and they're documenting who, you know, who's got how much. And,
so before we go back to the lodge, this is when Liz met one of the locals, and I don't know what you said.
Well, I was fascinated by the fact that they were like, I didn't know how heavy it was. Look at that big old boulder. It looks like it's heavy. So I wanted to see how heavy it was. And it's amazing the way that the locals balance things on their head.
Right.
I mean, even in Uganda, we saw kids balancing 5-gallon jugs on top of their heads, you know? So like at this point in the trip, I need to know how hard this is. So yeah. I had a conversation with the guide who spoke to them in the local language, and they said, sure, here, try it out. And so I tried it out, and then I did it, and I was very proud of myself. And I was so amused to the point where they even passed it, like the video around. They're like, can you show this person the video? Can you show this person the video?
Yeah, they loved it.
Yeah, and there's Becca in all her glory picking tea. She was very happy about it. So what was neat about this is we went and we learned about the actual process behind it and how Nyungwe House is supporting the local communities by giving them the land to work off of, charging them nothing. And then they took us back in and we had a whole tea presentation. So black tea versus white tea. Did you know that flavored tea isn't actually like a different tea leaf? It's the exact same tea leaf used in every single tea, but they just add a flavor to it. So if you got like lemongrass tea, like they've just added the lemongrass flavor to it, which I thought was really neat. And then you see there's 3 cups there. So they didn't tell us which was which. We just got to pick which one was our favorite. We learned about the process, about how they burn the leaves and then they like burn them again and then they grind them up. Anyways, it was really, I'm not a tea drinker, but like this was such a cool experience.
You definitely gain an appreciation for tea after this experience.
Yeah, and you can even plant your own tea plant if you want to.
And then you can go back and see.
And see how it's grown. They'll send you a photo of it. So it's kind of neat. All right. On to,
yes.
What?
I forgot about all the other activities they had.
There's so much to do there.
And in that same day, we went down to sort of the outskirts of the tea plantation. We did archery.
This is the helipad that we landed on. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it was the helipad that we landed on. So they brought us out and they taught us archery, and then we did spear throwing, and the sun is setting and the clouds are moving in over the mountains, and it was cool. It was a really neat thing to be able to just, I mean, it's a local thing, and so they're telling you the history behind it, but it's something different. It's not animals, it's not landscape, it's just like, you know, just playing around with something.
And you were really good. I was going through the videos
with so many stop and starts.
And like you always hit the target, and I don't think I hit the target. And I was gonna include a video on here, but I was so frustrated. I was like, I just want to hit the target.
Because, but I mean, you know, in that kind of situation, we were like, stop the video, start the video, start the video, stop the video. Nope, didn't get it that time. Hold on, it's fine. We're gonna get this. It's gonna be fine. Meanwhile, the sun is setting, and like I said, it was stunning. So then our guide they're trying to cram, you know, we're here for 2 nights, and they're, bless their hearts, trying to cram everything in they possibly can for us to be able to experience. So their hope was to get us back to the lodge in time for the Boma, and we were just having such a good time, like shooting and throwing, that we almost missed it. And they drive us back in a little go-kart back to the lodge, and we walk out to this beautiful sitting area, and out come these traditional dancers.
Yeah.
And you can see the fires crackling so much that it crackled onto our couch, and then we moved.
And then it crackled on the other couch.
And they really wanted us to get up and dance too. Remember, they were like trying to get everybody to get up and dance, and it was
a cool way to end the day.
Yeah, sun is setting and the stars are coming out, and I don't know if I've said this, but there is nothing but stargazing in Africa. So.
And I think this was one of the first nights in Rwanda that we actually saw the stars.
Yeah.
I remember looking out at the dancers, and then looking up to the sky and seeing the stars. It was just like that magical moment, like, oh wow, I'm in Rwanda.
Yeah, well, because we went and stayed in our room at the Sati. And Governor's didn't, it wasn't a little cloudy when we were there. Yeah, you're right. It was pretty magical. Oh.
Okay, so you're probably wondering why there's no pictures of chimps on this slide. And it's for a good reason, because Nyungwe is a newer chimp experience, which means that it's more of an habituation.
It is definitely an habituation.
So you are helping to, by going to Nyungwe and doing the trek, you are helping to habituate the chimps. But that does not mean that you are going to see the chimps.
Also, you are helping to carve paths, because I'm not sure where we were going or what we were doing, but I definitely saw like this deep, like steep area, and I had like this much ground to walk on, and I was like, I can't go back because there's no way I'm gonna get back from where I came from. So where am I going but forward?
So we started on a trail, and I think within 15-20 minutes we were off the trail.
Yeah.
And we were climbing the sides
Hustling.
of muddy mountains,
And it
was raining.
to pour on us. Becca was not having it. She pulled a Liz.
I was worried about you. I was worried about you, and I called her my sister. Or they called us sisters.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I need to be with my sister. Like I need to make sure she's okay. She's a little bit slower. I need to make sure she's okay. And so it was very fast paced.
Because chimps move quickly. They don't stay in one place. And I think the landscape here was the landscape here was definitely more diverse than it was in Uganda. And by diverse, I mean lots of ups and downs.
Yeah.
Whereas in Uganda, it was like a forest walk
and
maybe a little bit of a hill, and I mean hill, little hill. Here, it was walking on a path this wide with a steep decline and a steep incline on the other side. And you're just trying to figure out how you're going to navigate. And look, they'll get there. They're just not there yet because the chimps aren't used to it.
But if you're looking for a little bit of a challenge and you're looking to really have that intrepid experience, I think this is perfect for those types of people.
They also have a forest walk, like a canopy walk. So you can go to like a canopy bridge. Right. And they had a waterfall hike too. And everyone told us, do the waterfall hike, do the waterfall hike. And we're like, no, we got to compare chimps in both places.
No, we were scheduled to do the waterfall hike.
I was after the chimp trek. We were like, forget it.
No, we couldn't. They canceled it.
They canceled it because of the rain? Oh, see? I don't even remember. I was so distraught after the chimp trek. But what I think is pretty great about this is like any travel experience, you
ups and downs.
You figure it out, right? So this is our guide who was sitting with me because you were so irritated, right? We finally made it back to the path. And they're like, come with the guys, because they just wanted us to see the chimps, and we had only seen an ear, and they were really working hard. They really were. They really wanted us. They wouldn't let us quit. They wanted it. So I'm like, forget it, man. I'm sitting on the bench with my guide. I gave him, he's wearing an Alluring Africa hat. I was like, here, take my hat. And meanwhile, Becca goes with the rest of the group, and then she comes back and she's like, they were still chasing after the chimps. I'm like, well, me and my guide are taking selfies. So
yeah, you had the right idea.
So this is our after shot. What you may or may not be able to see is that we are soaked, number one. Number two, there is more mud caked on our boots than I think I could even imagine. I mean, we had boots made out of mud.
Yeah.
The good news is that as soon as we got back, they whisked them away and they were cleaner than new.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's my favorite amenity. Okay, so, and then do we want to talk quickly about Gishwati? It's a newer reserve park in Rwanda between volcanoes and Nyungwe. There is an area called Gishwati. They are opening to tourists later this year, and just starting out with nature walks right now. There is one chimp family in that area, and the hope is to habituate them.
It was incredible. We saw this image one of our partners presented to us of like what the national park looked like 20, 30 years ago or
it was further. Like this massive
it was huge
piece of land.
And then it showed this aerial image of what the park looks like now. So similar to how they're expanding and foresting out volcanoes, they're going to do that for Gishwati, but the hope is that there's down to one chimp family there. So the hope is that they'll be able to really get used to this family, habituate the family, start bringing in tourism, reforest the area.
Right. And
there's these corridors.
And expand the areas.
Yeah.
The wildlife.
Yeah, so that's a really neat. If you're looking for a project to follow, just look up Gishwati and see what they're.
And it's all happening right now.
Right now, yeah. We just got the presentation on it just recently. All right, so now we are headed to Kigali. Is our ultimate goal, because we've got 1 night left.
Yep.
And our guide says, all right, I can either take you this way or I can take you that way. And we're like, all right, well, let's go this way. So we actually drove through, we drove through Nyungwe and we took those photos.
Oh, yeah.
And so the forest actually extends in some areas where there weren't more. Yeah, and it was beautiful, like views, and you could see the lakes, and there were actually armed guards walking the street. And we had this really candid conversation with our guide, and he's like, does that make you nervous? And I said, actually, no, it really doesn't. And he goes, good, because it should help you feel safe. They are constantly, because it's a national park, so there's not humans occupying the park, they constantly have armed guards walking up and down the roads, like 24/7, just patrolling the area to make sure that everything is the way that it should be, protecting
the wildlife.
Yeah, so that was really neat. So he drove us through there, and then he took us through to Lake Kivu, which we'll show you now. And this is actually this is Rwanda's largest natural lake. It is there's no hippos or crocs or anything in it, so it's totally swimmable. And it felt like kind of a little beach resort. I mean, you saw where we just were compared to what this is now, right? It was beautiful. I remember just standing at, like over the balcony, like looking at the views, going, wow, yeah, this is so pretty.
You can go kayaking, you can go swimming,
boating, fishing, swimming. So a really nice, just an interesting thing to point out. If you've got the time to spend in Rwanda, this might be an interesting spot for you to spend a couple of days.
One night.
Yeah, right.
Because you can do it on your way back to Kigali.
Very easily. And we made it in time for like the journey. We got there in enough time for lunch.
Yeah, it was like less than 2 hours from Nyungwe.
Right. So we could have stayed there, enjoyed the afternoon, and then woken up the next morning and driven to Kigali. Especially if you start in Kigali, right? Because most people, international flights arrive in the evening, so you're kind of going to probably start in Kigali and have an overnight there. So experience Kigali, and then instead spend your last night at Lake Kivu, and then fly out, because most flights are in the evening.
Yeah, and there are some new properties popping up later this year in Lake Kivu, so I think it's definitely up and coming, and I think there will be some more luxury properties coming online in the near future.
Agreed.
Okay, so the last leg, Lake Kivu, back to Kigali. The next slide is our some pictures from the drive, including these guys who were sort of
hitching a ride.
A free ride back to Kigali.
So, beautiful. What we saw from the air, we were now getting to see from the ground, which was pretty neat. But on these 2-lane roads that are not everybody most people don't have cars. So foot traffic or bike traffic is the main source of transportation. So the drive could take, 2 hours. It could take 4 hours. You could get stuck behind a truck, and it could take a little longer. But there was plenty of sights and things to see kind of along the way. Like these guys who were just hanging out. How many nights was our trip? 15?
15 total.
15.
And we spent an extra night in Rwanda, so we did 8 nights, 7 nights. No,
it was 15 nights total.
Yeah, but we did 1 extra in Uganda than we did in Rwanda.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe. Oh gosh. I can't remember.
What we did is very different than what we would recommend anybody else do. So depending on how much time you have, I would say you want no less than 5 nights in Uganda, and I would do no less than...
I think 10.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're trying to combine it with something else.
If you're combining it with, like, the Serengeti.
Right, exactly. If you're going to just experience Uganda, 10 nights would be perfect.
Yeah.
And I think the same for Rwanda.
Yeah.
3, 6, 9, and then 10 on the end. Yeah.
Yeah, even maybe even longer.
Yeah, so 10 nights would really be good. Just depends on how much ground you're trying to cover and how many other places you're trying to see.
You want to experience the country. You don't want to just pop in for a couple nights and see the gorillas and maybe one other thing. You want to really get to see all corners of the country.
Agreed.
And just a little tidbit, a lot of people compare Rwanda to Switzerland, just the landscapes in Rwanda are very similar to the mountainous landscapes in Switzerland. So we got to see that on the drive back to Kigali.
Beautiful. I mean, and you're driving around these, you can kind of see in the video, you're driving around these mountains, and it was gorgeous. And it was like the perfect day. It was like almost like Rwanda was giving us a kiss goodbye, like knowing we were leaving.
Yeah, I think I had my window open. Yeah, a picture of me. The window was open, my arm was out, and I was just letting the wind blow in my hair.
Yeah.
But it was a good last day.
So then we end up at Kigali, and this, we stayed at the retreat, which is by far the best luxury option in Kigali
and boutique,
right now.
Because I think there is like a Marriott adjacent offering, but it's going to be a little bit more corporate, a little bit large. It's a larger property, whereas the retreat is very intimate. Only a few rooms.
Were greeted by the owners when we walked in. They're these two expats who basically came after the genocide to offer their services and ended up falling in love with the country so much they decided to stay and raise their kids there.
Yeah,
and then
2 kids.
Yeah,
but they wanted to find a way to sort of help uplift the country after the genocide. They wanted to do whatever they could within their power to
how can they help?
Establish a new business for these people. And so that's when they opened their restaurant, which became sort of a hospitality school. They would bring in kids, and they still do to this day. They bring in kids from the local communities, and they get to train in their restaurant. And so it's just a great way for them to pick up these skills and now work at all the many of these luxury properties all around the country.
Yep. It's kind of creating a revenue stream for locals.
Yeah.
And it's super cute. I mean, they had this like gorgeous pool that at night was lit by these stars, and the food was amazing. Food was so good. It was like art in and of itself. But they actually have kind of a complex. So they've got like this luxury boutique lodge, and then they've got one that's more of this like local hostel type rooms, and then they've got like the restaurant, which is caters to both locals and also tourists.
It was really, every time we went in there, I felt like it was super busy.
It was packed.
And they take artwork from the locals and put it on display, so you can buy local artwork.
Oh, they had like the little like farmers market thing set up too one morning, where the locals could come in and set up a table and you could buy their wares. So it was really neat.
Yeah.
And it was cool. We just, they were engaging with us every time. Like they came and joined us for breakfast, and we met their kids, and it just felt like
they were definitely
part of
their story. They were able to connect us with local shops, and which we'll talk about the next day.
Yeah, that's right.
That was Umaganda.
They also wrote a book, signed it, and gave us a copy too.
Oh yes. So their names are Alyssa and Josh. They
pull up the name of the book.
Oh, I don't have the name. Oh, A Thousand Hills
to Heaven.
Love, Hope, and a Restaurant in Rwanda. So it's on Amazon if you guys are interested in reading about it. It talks about their story and what they were able to do for Rwanda.
So we're there for one night, and this is our absolute last night in Rwanda. We have been traveling with very minimal weight luggage, and we've got no goodies to show for it. So we're like, we need to go and bring home some things, like these beautiful baskets that you see on display that we saw everywhere. I mean, this was a huge art piece that was constantly showing up. So we find out that the one morning that we have, because our flight leaves that night, it happens to be something called Umaganda. It is one Saturday a month where the entire community from 8 a.m. until 11 a.m. wakes up and cleans. I mean, how cool is that?
And it's a law. It's mandatory for one person from every household, at least one person from every household, to meet in the community to work on a project together. So whether it's cleaning or, fixing something, everybody's coming together,
cleaning the roads, cleaning their yards, whatever it may be. Everybody just comes together and cleans from 8 to 11 on this one Saturday a month. And what a sense of community that is, because as you can see in this image, it's like everybody is coming together to work for a cause, and a country that was so divided in our own lifetime. I think that this is something that is so incredibly powerful. And how cool would it be if we did something like that here? Can you imagine Americans like all stopping whatever they're doing to just
come together, unite?
Take care of their land.
Yeah.
So it ends at 11, which meant that we had a very short period of time to
Mhm.
explore and see the things that we wanted to see and buy the things that we wanted to buy, but we needed to experience Kigali.
Mhm.
So our guide was like, all right, we're going to make it happen. And the owner of the hotel that we were staying at knew this local artist and that local artist and this person and that person. So she really, both of them recommended places to go. They gave us a list
Mhm.
and they gave it to our guide and was like, all right, you need to go here, 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 and here. So off we went. But first actually, when we arrived in Kigali, didn't we do the Genocide Memorial and also Hotel Rwanda?
Yes.
Okay. So in terms of like timeline, when we got in, we actually went to the Genocide Memorial first.
Mhm.
And it is
Deep.
yeah, a memorial,
Emotional.
not a museum.
Mhm.
It is the final resting place for more than 250,000 victims of the genocide.
Mhm.
Their bodies, their bones are buried on this land.
Mhm.
And it was a lot to process.
Yeah. I mean, there were newspaper clippings, video footage, like you said, the bones of the deceased.
Yeah. These photos that you see on display are all people who brought a photo of the most recent photo of their loved one to kind of put them on this memorial hall of images. They talked about the kids and their stories. They talked about, but I think what was, so yes, they talked about the history of the genocide and the impact that it had and how devastating it was. But then it also talked about other genocides in our history, and it gave you kind of this comparison of the places that it has happened in other parts of the world. And then it talked about how the country, it ended with how the country has come together. It gave you testimonials from survivors. It gave you hope of these kids who grew up at that time, but now they're doing all these amazing, incredible things. And it was very much about the heart behind it, and how Rwanda has grown to come together in this beautiful way.
Right.
Stained glass window. Remember the stained glass window? I mean, we both walked out and we didn't have a dry eye, and we didn't speak to each other, and we told our guy we need ice cream. I mean, it just,
we need sprinkles and cupcakes.
Yeah, it was heavy. And I think that I wish that we had done this before we had really enjoyed Uganda. I mean, Rwanda, because it set the tone for what we were seeing. You know, not that I didn't know what had happened, but to be in it, to be living it. And we're coming up right up on the 20th anniversary of it too. It was like a couple weeks afterwards. Or something like that. It was an anniversary, a big one.
I agree. I wish we started so that we could have gone into the country and then, you know, seen the change that has happened, the growth. So definitely start with this, especially towards the end of a trip. You know,
we're already
sad to be leaving Africa, and then the Genocide Memorial. So start your trip with it. I think you're going to go into the country and appreciate it so much more.
Agreed. And what was neat about this day too was, again, this is not our last day. This is right when we first got in, but he took us, we had lunch at Hotel Mille Collines, which is the site for Hotel Rwanda. So if you've seen the movie, we had lunch at that hotel, and in fact, they only filmed parts of the movie there, but we had lunch next to the pool, where if you've seen the movie, there were some pretty major scenes that happened from it. So that was a really cool, like, historical kind of day for us. So last day, we're out and about. It's in Uganda. Things are starting to open up. I think our guide called the lady from the center. Because we were there and it was closed, and she opened up for us.
Well, first the owner of Heaven called all the places to see what time they were opening. So they were all, obviously, you know, they're not allowed to open their stores during Umuganda. That's reserved for cleanup until 11. So here we are, I think at 11:30 outside of the door, and they weren't there. And we had like 30 minutes before we had to go to the airport. And we wanted to get baskets, and we wanted to get textiles. So our guide, who happened to know the lady, calls her
on the phone.
5 minutes later, the lady shows up. She opens up her shop, and we clear her out completely.
Oh my gosh.
we buy
everything. We spend so much money. But what I think is so cool about this particular shop that we went to, so you can see it says the women's center there on the left hand side, and then the bottom left image. So this particular shop opened in 2007 and it was 18 Rwandese women who opened it up because they were trying to find a way to support the local community, but also to address gender-based violence and gender inequality and discrimination and those kinds of things. So it was all women, and they all came together. And so you walk into the shop and it's like, yes, there's all these things on display and it shows you who made it, and it's all like handmade tags and stuff. But in the other room, it's like sewing machines all like in this room together. So 2007, they started with 18 people, and now they have over 50, I think it is.
Yeah. Over 50.
Over 50 women, yeah, employed as seamstress. And they've got different initiatives going on. They're bringing in women. And the name Umutima actually means heart. So it is inside each of the things that you purchase from them. If it's a bag or a headband or a skirt, there is a small little heart that's stitched into everything. So obviously we were like, okay, we're supporting this, and we just kept buying like everything that we possibly could. So,
and it was cute. It wasn't
adorable.
like it wasn't like a penny purchase. Like we're like, oh, this stuff is really cute.
Yeah, the necklace I had on in the Uganda webinar was purchased from there.
Yeah.
I got a really anyways, great spot. We highly recommend visiting it. And then he took us to a couple other places. Some of them were still not open.
And we went to a supermarket.
Oh, we did go into a grocery store, supermarket. Yeah. For what? For snacks. Oh, I was chasing the ginger beer.
Oh, were you?
Yeah.
Because we got tea there and some other things.
Oh, and tea, right. Yeah. And then we're like figuring out in the car on the way to the airport, are we going to make it? Are we going to make it? Trying to shove everything in the bags. And the airport there was pretty interesting too. You drive in and there's like we had to get out of the vehicle.
Right. If you've been to Nairobi airport, it's the same thing. When you get out of the vehicle and they scan, all parts of the vehicle. And then you get back in the car, and then you pull up to the entrance, but they have porters at the airport, which I really like. So you're not schlepping all your luggage.
Oh my God, do you remember the people we got stuck behind?
Yeah.
There were 2, 3 people they had 6
they bought
lunch bags. They were bringing honey home. I don't know, but they spent a good 30 minutes, and we're just sitting there watching the clock going, we're on to make our flight, and they're unpacking and repacking, and travel stories, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, are we gonna make our flight?
Yeah, putting us on our toes for sure. But
yeah, and that's it. Then
that was our last day. I'm so glad that we got to bring home souvenirs, because the whole time we're like, yeah, we'll get souvenirs. Get souvenirs. Don't ever wait. If you see something you like, you buy it. Don't think that there will be a store later in your trip, because there may or may not be. Oh my God, we went to the jewelry store.
We did. What jewelry store?
We got earrings.
Oh yeah, the handmade, he was an artist.
Yeah.
Who incorporated recycled art and created these beautiful pieces of jewelry.
Yeah. Earrings, bracelets, necklaces.
Yeah, but it was clearly an up and coming artist, and I think Kigali's kind of got that vibe. They're right on the fringe of being this really trendy local small African city.
But they have a lot of expats as well.
Definitely.
So
would you say overall the country was cheaper to visit than Rwanda, given that it was less developed? Yes, I would say yes.
Oh, Uganda
is definitely more affordable than Rwanda. The difference is, though, that if you are shortening your time in Uganda, it is it's bigger and more spread out, so you have to either drive longer distances or you have to pay more to fly. Whereas Rwanda, as you saw from the map, all roads lead to Kigali.
Everything is with 2 to 3 hours from each other, unless you're going from volcanoes to Akagera, which is across the country. But, yeah.
So accessibility in Rwanda is a little bit easier, which I think then transportation cost isn't as high unless you take a heli. Whereas Uganda, you spend a little bit more time on the road, or you spend a little bit more to fly. So I've actually compared apples and apples, and when you apples to oranges, whatever, Granny Smith and red. When you are only going into Uganda for just a 3-night extension, that means you have to fly in and out, which almost then compensates for the cost of the extra
permit.
How much the permit is more.
Okay.
Yeah. So accommodation is cheaper, but when you look at the flying versus the driving,
the all-in price.
Yeah. Yeah. So depends on really what you're planning to do there and how long you're going to spend.
But overall comparison between Rwanda and Uganda, I mean, Rwanda is definitely a little bit more polished. They have paved roads. Even the ladies were dressed in their clothes. their clothes were always laundered and clean.
Kind of put together a little bit more instead of
Yeah.
mismatched.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right, so we've got a couple more slides, just kind of, if
Yeah.
you've been with us before, you know, in the Uganda trip, we always get asked, what's the best time to go?
Mhm.
So rainy season, March to May, and again in November. November's more like the short afternoon bursts of thunderstorms. We were there in March. We caught one rainy day. You know, it's kind of just like living in Florida during the summer afternoon thunderstorms. It's not, there isn't a bad time to go, but as with any season, there's yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's all we have. We incorporated the chimp comparison and all that earlier. So.
Oh, right. Yeah, totally. So Jennifer, thanks. I'm glad you enjoyed it. So we are, if you need help, we're happy to help you out with that. But I think 25th anniversary is definitely a great time for it. You're welcome, Robin. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you guys for being here with us. It's been a joy for us.
It's been fun
to kind of break out of our new normal, for lack, and be able to just kind of wrap with you guys and share these memories with you. And I know that next week you're going to see a completely different perspective and a completely different dynamic as Michonne and Sunit tell you about their journey through South Africa and Mozambique. The week after, Abigail's on here right now. She was my travel partner for 30 days, so you'll see a completely different side of travel from that. But we're so grateful. Thank you for taking the time to hang out with us. And if you have any questions, you email us, shoot us an email, give us a call. We're around, and we're nowhere to go at the moment. So,
and Liz is at Liz at Alluring Africa, Liz at alluringafrica.com. If you want to email her. I'm Becca, so it's Becca at Alluring. But I highly recommend that you follow us on social media. I think that is a great source of inspiration and a little escape from everything that's going on right now. So
totally. Yeah, Susan is definitely still with us, Leah. I'm trying to convince her to do her own webinar. She's been to some cool places in Namibia, Morocco, of course, Tanzania. She's covered a lot of ground. So hopefully we can get her on the next one. I saw another question float by about how much would a trip like that cost. So the Rwanda portion of our trip,
we can talk about sort of a nightly average.
Yeah, it depends on what time of, again, it depends on what time of year you're traveling. It depends on if you take the heli flight or you choose to make the drive, because the heli was expensive. You're going to figure somewhere between 1,000 to 1,500 per person per night plus, possibly.
That's Rwanda.
For Rwanda, and then you add on things like $1,500 for a permit or $300 for the chimps. So there's little things that plug in, but what's great about it is your meals, your drinks, your activities. It's kind of an all
taken care of.
So the only thing you got to worry about is tipping your guides, because that's at your discretion, and then your international flights. Uganda, I'd say you're looking at closer to probably 700 to 900 per person per night on an average. And then permits and plus and all that jazz. But there's tricks.
Yeah,
if
you can stay at Ruzizi instead of Magashi, which I think is $500 a night.
Yeah.
You can stay at Sabino instead of Basati, which is less than. It's like $1,200 a night. But
it's like $400 or $500.
But I think we have some other properties we could use. So
it just depends. It just depends. But look, if you're interested, we have we have tons of itineraries that we've created for other clients. We are working on some impactful itineraries right now, so keep an eye out for those. And we'll continue to do this. Talk to you about your destinations. And if any of our clients that have participated in these webinars would like to hop on and do this with us, we'd be happy to let you talk about your trip. Yeah, because part of what I've loved the past couple of weeks has been reaching out and talking to my clients, and they're sending me their photos and their videos, and they're telling me their stories, and it's just good to have a little bit of heart and a little bit of inspiration. So reach out to us, and thank you again for so much for being here. Good. I'm happy to hear that. Thank you for being a part of it, and join us again next week. All right. So cheers to another presentation. All of you wonderful people, and this virus going away so we can all see the world again.
Yes.
I like
Cheers
that. Right? Cheers. All right, guys. Have a great night. We appreciate you. We'll see you again soon, hopefully.
How do I turn this off?
So many buttons.